When a doubtful young man walks into a jewelry store and the girl behind the counter asks him one simple question, everything changes. She is Margaret, afraid of fragile feelings. He is Dylan, afraid of making the wrong choice. But a random conversation becomes fate. A chance encounter becomes a heart's decision. And one ring becomes the beginning of their entire story. From engagement to wedding vows, through their first storms and quiet victories. This is a story that proves love doesn't have to be perfect to be real.
Love Stories Max. Welcome to my channel. Enjoy watching, friends.
When one question changes everything. When I think about the day everything changed, the first thing that comes back to me is the smell. That warm, honey-like scent of polishing paste that always drifts through the jewelry shop where I work. I've been there for 3 years now, not exactly my dream job, but a place that sometimes hands you unexpected little gifts from fate. One of those gifts was Dylan. I noticed him long before we ever spoke. He'd come in occasionally, quiet, distracted, always carrying something broken. A snapped chain, a loose stone, a bent ring. Not for himself, or so I believed back then. He had that look of someone who was slightly lost in his own thoughts. Not careless, just overwhelmed by all the noise inside his head. Tall, a bit slouched, as if the world pressed on him from above, but he kept standing anyway. Eventually, we started talking. First, short, polite, work-related. Later, more. He felt strangely familiar, as if I'd already seen his sadness, his shy smile, his gentle awkwardness somewhere in another life. Maybe I just wanted to believe that. We grew close slowly, like pages turning in an old book. We would grab coffee after my shift, sit on the riverbank, read each other ridiculous Craigslist ads. I told him about my fear of becoming a nobody. He told me about his constant battle between what he wanted and what he believed he should do. Those evenings felt like a soft kind of therapy. And without realizing when it happened, I fell in love, not fast, not dramatically, but deeply, like water soaking into stone. It was an ordinary morning. I was wiping the display glass when I heard the door chime. I turned, and almost dropped the cloth. Dylan stood in the middle of the shop, looking more lost than I'd ever seen him. In his hands, a small burgundy ring box. His fingers trembled slightly. "Are you looking for something?" I asked, doing my best not to sound breathless. He stepped closer, set the box on the counter, but didn't open it. "I need advice," he said. "Honest advice, even if it hurts." I nodded, even though something cold tightened inside my chest. "I want to propose," he whispered. "But I'm not sure." Those words hit harder than I expected. I knew he had a long, painful history with someone, a relationship that drained years and strength from him. But I didn't know he was close to making a new decision like this. He opened the box. It was a beautiful ring, delicate, classic, with a clear stone that shone as if it knew too much. "Why aren't you sure?" I asked. As a consultant, it was my job. But as a woman who maybe loved him more than she allowed herself to admit, it was torture. He looked at the ring as if it accused him. Because I don't know if this is right. If it's love. If I'm not just running from loneliness. If I'm not trying to fill some empty space. I'm scared to make a mistake, again. That, again, told me everything. And then, I asked him one simple question. A question that wasn't from an employee. A question that slipped out of me like truth with no breaks. I asked, when you picture your life 10 years from now, who's having breakfast with you? And who is the person you talk to the way you talk to me? He looked up. I had never seen someone's eyes fill with clarity so quickly. He was silent for a long time. A minute, two. I swear I could hear his heartbeat. Then he closed the ring box. Not her, he whispered. Then slowly lifted his gaze to mine. It's you. I had no idea what to say. No idea what to feel. It was too honest, too raw, too beautiful. He came to my apartment. No flowers, no dramatic speeches. Just truth. I want to start everything with honesty, he said. If you're done with games. I've been done with games for a long time, I answered. He laughed softly, relieved. And then he finally hugged me. The way he always wanted to. Not out of gratitude, not out of fear, not to escape something, but because he chose me. We learned each other's rhythms. Midnight pasta, long walks, dumb arguments about pillow colors, small confessions whispered in half-dark kitchens. One night he said, "Your questions saved me from living someone else's life." And I thought, maybe it saved me too. He took me to the same riverbank where we once read funny ads and talked about fears. He pulled out the same burgundy box. "This is the ring I once brought in doubt," he said. But today, I didn't doubt for a second. I nearly cried. "Margaret," he whispered, touching my cheek, "you're the answer to every question I was afraid to ask." I said yes, not from fear, not from loneliness, but from that deep, quiet certainty that this was the right life. Our story didn't explode. It was a light that turned on slowly, and lit everything. I remember standing by the river with that ring on my finger, unable to believe this was really happening to me. The stone caught the sunlight and shimmered like the universe had decided to wink. Dylan held my hands, and I could see how he was trying to hide the way his fingers trembled. He kept smiling, wide, honest, without the shadow of the doubts that once haunted him. That evening we sat in my kitchen, eating overcooked pasta. My hands were shaking so much I forgot the timer, laughing about how even our engagement felt homey, imperfect, real. No fancy fireworks, no dramatic music, just us. He didn't let go of my hand the entire night, as if afraid I'd disappear if he blinked. Turns out neither of us knows how to plan anything. At all. Some examples. I wanted a champagne-colored wedding dress. But when I tried on a simple, plain white one, I burst into tears. Because, this is the one. Dylan wanted a small wedding. But accidentally invited half his office. It felt rude not to. We were searching for a venue. We ended up choosing an old brick wall loft because he said, "Even the silence here has character." And I fell in love with the place just like I fell in love with him. My mom wanted a fancy ballroom and giant fireworks. His mom wanted a garden ceremony. So we took the loft and added tiny fireworks. Compromise. Dylan kept forgetting important things. Babe, I forgot to book the photographer. Are you serious? We can ask my friend Trevor. His phone has an amazing camera. I almost murdered him. But then he brought me a cinnamon cappuccino, and well, I have weaknesses. Total chaos. But ours. And somehow, comforting. It drizzled that morning. The soft kind of rain that makes everything look cleaner. I stood in front of the mirror in my white dress while the stylist whispered, "You look like someone who could love the whole world." I didn't know what to say. Because I only loved one person that much. Dylan cried when he saw me. Like, honestly cried. Didn't even try to hide it. He stuttered. "You're like the beginning of everything." We laughed and cried at the same time. The guests cried. Even Trevor cried, and yes, he became our official photographer because we forgot to book a real one. During the vows, Dylan said something I'll remember forever. "I used to be afraid of choosing. But loving you is the choice that finally made me." I had to breathe slowly not to fall apart. We danced to an old song we once heard in a cafe. The world narrowed down to a circle of warm light around us. And for a moment, it felt like nothing else existed. And then came real life. And real life always has a flair for drama. I wanted light, wooden, minimalistic pieces. Dylan wanted a giant black leather couch that weighed about the same as a small car. "It's hideous," I told him honestly. "It's classic," he protested. "It's a nightmare. It's comfortable." We argued for 40 minutes straight. Then he sat on a cardboard box looking wounded. And I made tea and tried not to roll my eyes too hard. That evening he wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "Fine. We'll get your couch. But let me have an over-the-top gaming chair. Deal." And we both laughed. In the first months, Dylan was buried under a major work project. He brought work home, stayed up late, and one evening, when I placed dinner in front of him and he didn't even glance up, something snapped in me. "You're slipping back into who you used to be," I said quietly. "The man who lived in fear and deadlines." "I'm trying to provide for us," he shot back. "And I'm trying not to disappear between your emails." We didn't sleep until 4 in the morning. We talked, argued, cried, interrupted each other. And then finally, he said, "I don't want to live the way I did before you. I'll change my schedule. I promise." And he did. He stopped taking work home. Learned to say no to his boss. I could feel he wasn't doing it out of obligation, but out of love. One day I realized I hadn't drawn in months. That I'd started adjusting to everything, his schedule, his habits, even his music taste. We were eating pizza on the floor, and I suddenly burst out. "I'm scared I'm becoming a shadow." He pulled me into his arms and said softly, "Margaret, I fell in love with your light, not your shadow. If you're losing yourself, we'll find you together. Every day, if we have to." And something inside me finally relaxed. Our life wasn't a fairy tale without rainy days. And it wasn't a movie where every problem solves itself in 3 scenes. But it felt like this. When we fall together. When we rise together. And every tiny drama taught us to be more honest, more stubborn, more gentle. One night Dylan whispered in the dark, "I always thought love was something huge. But it turns out, it's the small things that keep you from giving up." And I realized, maybe that's why we're going to make it. Love doesn't begin with grand gestures or survive on perfect lines. It begins with honesty. With the moment you admit your fears, your doubts, and the shaky parts you'd rather hide. That's where real closeness appears. Imperfect, but alive. Margaret and Dylan remind us of something essential. Sometimes fate arrives quietly, disguised as a simple question, a random meeting, a detail small enough to overlook. Yet those tiny moments can turn into the choices that shape an entire life. They show that love grows where 2 people aren't afraid to be vulnerable. Where they're willing not only to choose each other, but to choose each other again and again. In the days when the magic settles and real life begins. Routines, compromises, disagreements, victories that feel small but mean everything. Their story tells us this. A ring isn't an answer. A wedding isn't an ending. It's the beginning of a road where one truth matters most. Love is a decision you renew every day. And happiness isn't the absence of storms, but the ability to stand together while the rain is falling.